Okay, so to kick things off, sort of the idea for this, Jamie, was to create I'm calling it the Attorney Lounge, and that's kind of based off of Snell and Wilmer when I started there, and we had an attorney lounge. And the cool thing there was you could stop by the attorney lounge whenever you wanted. You could meet people that you wouldn't normally run into, and you could get a little advice. You could talk to them about kind of anything in your life. And so the idea here is really to talk to attorneys, get to know them a little bit better, maybe pick your brain in terms of advice for people that are interested in law, for you people that are interested in sports, and just kind of talk about whatever. So if I veer off of that topic or any of those topics, or feel free to slap me back into place here.
Just like old times, right, Brian?
Yes, exactly. It would make me feel right back at home again. So to start, really what I want to do is sort of focus on you and your career. And I think the first place I wanted to start was just the very beginning, kind of where you grew up, and the path that you navigated to get to the place that you're at today.
Well, I grew up in Phoenix, and our first home was about 3 miles from Grand Canyon University. So it's exciting to be back here. I am the proud daughter of two parents that immigrated here from Thailand with about $500 in their pocket and two suitcases. So really blessed to learn determination, resilience, and honestly gratitude from my parents just because of their situation. My mom raised us while my dad was doing his residency. So of course he was never home. So she raised three kids who, pretty much on her own. And, it's from them that I think I have a lot of determination and resilience that you really need to work in the athletics industry. Yeah, but it's a privilege to be back here in Phoenix, to be not that far away from GCU, and to really be able to serve this community that where we originally grew up.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, and you sort of refer to yourself as sort of the, I don't know how you want to say it, but the redheaded stepchild or something like that. But you have a pretty impressive, obviously your parents are very impressive. I've met them before, love them. But you have some impressive siblings as well.
I do. I'm the failed attorney. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I know.
Right. My father was doing his residency for brains. He's a neurosurgeon, was a neurosurgeon, a retired neurosurgeon. And my sister became a Mohs surgeon. So she primarily works for patients with skin cancer, and removing skin cancer. And my brother became really in lay term, a rocket scientist, I guess is what you would call it. He operates, designs, builds Mars rovers for NASA. So I'm the only non-science one. But, I think there's a purpose for everyone. And I went to,
it's turned out you've done very well.
It's been
but I just had to get that in there because, as successful as you've been, it's always interesting when you bring up your siblings.
Well, but I learned this. I can't, when I go home and talk about how challenging the athletics industry is, it doesn't really resonate with my family, because they'll always say, well, it's not brain surgery, it's not rocket science. And it's literal in our family. That's literally what they do. So
it's crazy. So, okay. So that being the background and that kind of setting the foundation, that being your family. So how did you navigate into the law? I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I'll just mention that you went to USD, University of San Diego, right, for undergrad. How did you end up sort of navigating into law and then ultimately sports?
Well, my parents are pretty traditional Asian culture parents. So they told me that one, obviously I was going to go to grad school beyond just undergrad. I majored in psychology and minored in women's studies when I was at USD. And so they said, you can do whatever you want, but it either needs to be medical school, law school, or you need to get your PhD. So I had three options. Law school was the shortest. They told me I was good at arguing, so I decided to pick law school.
I've experienced that firsthand. So yes, I
Yeah.
know.
But I actually wanted to go to business school because that's where my natural tendency is. I really like management. I have a business kind of mind, and they really were, for them, it was those are my options. So I didn't end up going to business school, but I'm really glad that I chose this path and they directed me in this direction because law school wasn't where my natural tendency was. The issue spotting and the communication and the, it really wasn't where I was naturally good at. But business kind of was natural for me. So I'm glad I had this extra skill set. And I would have never predicted that going to law school is probably one of the most beneficial things I could do for the direction that college athletics is going in. It's constantly risk
Yeah.
management, issue spotting, and things like that.
Yeah. And I want to get into that a little bit. So but I'm curious too, like on sort of sticking with sort of how you ended up in this path in the first place. I mean, did you know going into law school that you wanted to be in sports, or where did the idea of having a career in sports come up on your path?
So the other great thing about law school is within my first semester, I knew right away that I did not want to practice law. So, you learn your purpose, but you learn what you do want to do, what you don't want to do. And I learned that pretty quickly. It just wasn't a fit. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, I've always wanted to be in business. Well, what is the business that I love more than anything? And that was always been sports. If you grew up in Phoenix, you were a diehard Phoenix Suns fan. Everyone just was a Suns fan. So I grew up watching the Suns when I couldn't watch during the off season, when I couldn't watch basketball. I would actually watch the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs because back then we didn't have the Diamondbacks. So I would just find
Yeah.
something to watch, or the Braves. And then between that time, I started watching the Arizona Cardinals. So I just became a diehard sports fan growing up in Phoenix. So I decided at that point, okay, I don't want to practice law. It's not a fit for me. The business that I love and I've always loved is sports. So it was really at that, I think it was honestly the first semester of law school that I decided I was going to pursue sports. And fortunately, in Arizona, there's a lot of sports opportunities. And being in Tucson, I went to U of A for law school. I knew we had spring training there. So I said, you know what, I'm going to send out a ton of resumes and see if something comes back. And so that's where I got my first start. I sent something out. Chicago White Sox said, hey, we need some help during spring training. So I actually worked in sports communications. I did stats for baseball.
There you go. Nice. Yep.
Yep. And so
so you said you were a baseball fan, and then maybe an interesting time to sort of mention too that your husband is a very good baseball player as well. So yeah, and you ended up, I guess, working in sports. Your first job was in baseball, as you mentioned, in spring training. Did you also start with the White Sox?
I did, but I
that?
like to mention that my favorite ever general counsel also played baseball in college.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I think, yeah, not at the level of Matthew, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
He was a really good baseball player. He's All-American at Georgia Tech. He was voted captain of his team twice on a team that included Mark Teixeira, and they went to the College World Series as a baseball program that year. So yeah, he was a really good baseball player. Still named one of their all-time greats. But I actually love the business of baseball. Sport that I love has always been basketball. So I kind of have a good thing here. I've got both at GC. We have an incredible baseball team, and our basketball team, 2 tournaments in the last 3 years, really projected to be really good this year. Yeah, so excited about both programs. So I got the best of both worlds here.
Yeah, and the baseball team at GCU has also made the national tournament twice now, right?
Yeah.
Once we qualified, got the automatic bid, and one year an at-large bid.
That's right.
And you're the sport administrator for both baseball and men's basketball, correct?
I am. They're, all of our sports, we try to give as much support to. So, and I work closely with all of them, but I directly oversee from a business side. Those are 2 of our sports that we really have to, we do have to invest in because there's a lot of return for the university by doing that. But all of our sports, of course, I spend a lot of time with, and we have direct supervisors over each sport. And the main thing is we want every sport. It's almost like every sport has a GM. so,
Yep.
so, but yes, I work directly with men's basketball and baseball, and we're in a good trajectory. Not where we want to be, but we have a foundation of where we want to be, and now it's kind of moving up from there. You hear the President
Well,
Mueller.
no, I do. And I think I don't want to veer too far off yet. I want to get into Grand Canyon because as close as me and you are to the school, there's probably a lot of people that don't know a lot about Grand Canyon. But before I get there, I want to go back again because I'm hoping that like students at Grand Canyon or other, students, anyone interested in sports might be listening to this and kind of, I like that sort of inflection point of learning a little bit about, your interest in sports, and that's, determining kind of that's what you wanted to do, and then how you got your foot in the door, because there's so many people that want to be in sports, but they don't know how to get there. And so, like, tell me a little bit more, I guess, about how you got your foot in the door. And you said the White Sox were having spring training in Tucson, and so what dots got connected there that led to you working with them?
Yeah, well, it really again was just being aggressive, being okay with getting a lot of rejections, and just finding the opportunity. And the main thing with working in sports is you have to be willing to do anything, and you have to be willing to go anywhere, because there are people that will move across the country and do a job for free just for the opportunity to work in sports. So it was just the opportunity was available, and just really lucky that I was there in Tucson and able to get these opportunities with spring training, and they needed some help, and it was I made it easy for them. That's the other thing. It's working in sports, it's nonstop. It's 24 hours a day. It's weekends. There's no break. So making it easier for them by saying, hey, I'm here if you need me. And they don't have to post a job, they don't have to go all through the HR process. So that was my first step. Once you get that first piece of experience on your resume, it does make it a lot easier. So they hired me again the following year. And then after that, I actually took a semester off of law school so that I could take an internship with the Orlando Magic. And so I took a semester off, got into the same field, corporate sponsorship, and spent some time there. And by that point, I had, 3 kind of separate years of experience in different areas. I had sports information and communications, then I had corporate sponsorship on my resume. So then adding in, finishing law school and then getting, passing the bar, now I've got all this experience over 3 years, and I have, the education background, in college sports, especially, they do like to see a postgraduate degree. You pretty much are not a strong candidate if you don't have that. So, I appreciate that I went through all of that, but by that time, when I started applying for jobs, and again, I didn't just look for jobs that were open. I sent everything out to every area, every division, whether it's major leagues or minor leagues, NBA or independent ball, whatever was available, I just sent it out. And so I was very fortunate after graduating from finishing law school that I had a few opportunities. One, to work with the Las Vegas 51s. I believe they're the Dodgers affiliate. I don't know if they still are. And then
Yeah,
also
I think so.
an opportunity to work at a sports agency. And I did meet the sports agency. I met going to a Sports Lawyers Association meeting that was held in Phoenix at the time. So that's the other thing, is constant relationship building and networking. I mean, it's just nonstop in the sports industry. So I got offered from both and ended up taking the position with the sports agency. So, again, once
Yeah, I
you have
think
that first piece, it's hard to get that first job. And then after that,
yeah.
it does become a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think it's true probably in any industry, but it's probably more heightened in sports too. The relationships and the networking and all of that, and the importance of something like that. And starting out just interning and being willing to, like you say, do whatever. Because the best thing you can do at that, you don't have a lot of overhead at that point in your life. So
Right.
you can take those chances, work for free, get the experience, and really what you're getting paid in is the relationships you're building with people and the resume that you're building at that time. And so it's interesting to me because there's so many people that want to be in sports, but how do you get your foot in the door. And so it's interesting to hear that. So your first paid job in sports, you graduate law school. Where do you go after that?
So I went directly to a sports agency in DC. I did a lot of marketing contracts with the Washington Redskin players, and also represented several baseball players. And I was there for not that long. I learned pretty quickly that is not where I wanted to be. That being a sport in the sports agency world, it's a little bit babysitting that happens. So it wasn't for me. So I stayed there about 10 months, and I started to realize that it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I thought I would try college athletics. And, after that kind of short period, I started looking at opportunities in college athletics. There was an internship position open at Duke. So I went full-time director of sports management and said, you know what, I think I need to start over. I need to reset because this isn't what I like. And so, but I did research though. I saw that with Duke, they were trying to hire a compliance person, but they didn't really have a department. So I figured there'd be some opportunity to grow there. So I went ahead and applied for that internship position, got hired, and really started building out the compliance department at Duke.
And so Jamie, just real quick. So what year was this? About how old were you? What year was it? I guess I shouldn't put you on the spot and make you reveal your age, but I'm just curious kind of where this all sort of.
So let's see, I finished law school at the age of 22. So I stayed at the sports age at 20, so 23.
Wait, you graduated law school at 22?
I did. Yes, I finished.
How did you?
Well, yeah, I actually finished high school at 16. So that's why I kind of got to start early. And it's not by anything other than the fact that I did not like school. I wanted to get to work. And so I just zipped on.
I didn't like school either, but I was not graduating at 16, no matter how hard I tried. So I appreciate you trying to, soft play that. That's impressive as well.
Yeah, no, I finished pretty quickly. And I actually finished law school in 2.5 years. So that was the other. You had to take a semester off.
Wait, you took a semester off and you still finished in 2.5 years?
Well, I finished because I took a semester off. So I wanted to get done. I didn't want to extend. So I ended up like loading up on summer classes because I knew I wasn't going to be a practice law. So I didn't do work at law firms over the summer like everyone else, the fancy law firms. so okay. I said I'll blow it up and got it done in 2.5 years. I took a semester off, and to go down on magic. But yeah, that's how much when you dislike school that much. Will try to.
I appreciate you saying that. There's a lot of people that don't like school. They can't finish that quickly. So it's very impressive. So, okay. So what year did you join Duke? And this is an unpaid internship.
No, I was paid through all of it. I was very fortunate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very fortunate that even with the White Sox internship, the Orlando Magic internship, and even going back to Duke, they were paid. So I was fortunate in that sense because there are a lot of people that actually take unpaid positions, but it was paid, but it was I took a salary. I mean, a cut.
Took a step back comp wise. Yeah.
And that was in 2003 that I started at Duke.
Okay. Yeah. And so you go there and tell me about your time at Duke.
It was great. There's not many people who can say that their first, experience at a college athletics program is with Duke University. And if you love basketball the way I do, to work with the Duke University basketball program, to work directly with Coach K. And he hired me. I will always be grateful because they did hire me with no experience in college athletics. They really just hired me based on fit and potential ability. And I stayed there for 7 years. Each year I was promoted. I went from intern, then they hired me full time, became a director, became an assistant athletic director, ended up on athletic director, and ended up on senior staff. And I had a boss, Chris Kennedy at the time, who his style was great for me to learn. He was very hands-off. He's also a professor at Duke, so I was able to learn. But
nice.
He was kind of like, you learn by doing and by being competent. And long hours. I mean, when you're working and new to it, it was long hours. I remember taking calls at 1 a.m. from football coaches because they were out recruiting on the West Coast at 10 p.m. and you got to be available on the East Coast on 1 a.m. at 1 a.m. So it was really long hours. I mean, it was definitely not a 9-to-5 job. But I really enjoyed it, learned a lot, grew a lot from there. and had the opportunity to learn some leadership things from Coach K. And I will always remember learned a huge lesson from him that I didn't appreciate as much as at the time that I do now. But I was a very young kind of new compliance person. You know, you think you're doing the right thing, you think you know what you're supposed to be doing. And there was a time when we had an issue, and I thought I was handling it the right way. And I think I was in my mid-20s, and he pulled me aside and he said, he said, you need to understand that if anything happens to the Duke basketball program, it impacts the entire university. It's just not about sports, it's about the entire university. And, he could have pulled a power play and said, I'm going to make sure you get fired, because I made a mistake. I honestly did. I made a mistake. And he didn't. He pulled me aside and explained the bigger picture to me. So just his leadership, I appreciate now, even more now than I did back then. And when I left Duke, he was the first person to call me and thank me for everything that I had done. And again, I say but I had a lot of support that we did. So just really fortunate, really thankful for the time I had at Duke.
It's amazing. I mean, in the course of your career, you think of these people that you come across and the incidents that could occur that could derail your career or throw you off. But you can't predict those paths in advance. You can sort of set your course, but then you never know where the dots are going to get connected. And having someone, a mentor, someone in your career early that helps take an interest in you and is willing to work with you, can make all the difference in the world. And that's pretty amazing that someone of his stature would, take an interest and, respond in that way, because we all make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn from them. But the way that people sort of respond when you do that, I think can set your career sort of in a positive direction, because then, obviously you probably have examples of times where people now, you obviously have a large department. You have a ton of responsibility as the athletic director. You now can respond to people on your team in the same way and help them in the same way that you got helped earlier in your career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think about that all the time, and it's helped me, I am a type A personality. I know you know that, but it has helped me really just be more empathetic, and really try to, from a leadership standpoint, try to think of how can I help this person get better. It's not about I want it done this way, or you need to do this because of anything other than how is this going to help you grow. So it's those moments of leadership that have really impacted me.
Absolutely. So, okay. So now Duke, you go from there and then you move to Georgia State. So what was the impetus for that change, and what was that like there?
So the impetus was I decided I got married to my husband. I met Matthew when he was an assistant coach at Duke, and we got married there, and we were just about to start a family. And I said, we can't do this. Working in sports for both of us it's too much. We won't be able to raise him. So I actually wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. It was really important to me. Family was really important to me. And so I actually just decided I was going to stay at home and raise my child. So I decided I was going to leave Duke. At the same time, my husband was being kind of recruited to work at another position in his hometown, with a turf company. And so we said, okay, you know what, with this family situation, let's do it. So we both moved to Dalton, Georgia, the carpet capital of the world.
Yep.
And I think at some point we realized it just wasn't God's plan for us. It just wasn't. And I got a call from Georgia State. Let's see, maybe after about 10 months or so, something like that. And it was after my son was born. And they said, hey, we have this senior associate position open. Are you interested? I was actually fine and happy and just thrilled to be a stay-at-home mom. But we decided, hey, let's just give it a shot and just see what happens. So I went down and interviewed, and they They offered me that same day. We had to make a decision, and we said, you know what? I think this is the way God is guiding us. So let's go for it. So we moved to Georgia State, and I was there to help them transition from FCS to FBS.
Mm-hmm.
And we successfully completed that, and had our second child while we were there.
Real quick, I want to recognize our sponsor, Array. Array handles all of the details of litigation so that you can focus on winning your case. They take care of forensic collection, e-discovery, managed review, record retrieval, court reporting, legal staffing and recruiting, trial support, you name it. I'm the general counsel at Array, so I may be a little bit biased, but I was also a client before I started working there too. I've used them on various matters, and they've always delivered. If you're involved in a lawsuit, make Array your first call, and they'll help you get organized right from the beginning. You can reach out to me or visit trustarray.com. Now, back to the pod. I did not realize that you had taken those 10 months off and that it wasn't a seamless transition into Georgia State. I mean, again, it's amazing how, you can't write these scripts in advance. So that's amazing. Okay, so 4 years at Georgia State, you transitioned them from FCS to BCS. Did I say that right? FCS and BCS? I can't remember.
Yes.
Okay, so then how do you? And Matthew is from there, so you get a call. How did this all come about with Grand Canyon then?
So the other piece of it, while I was at Georgia State, my husband was still working in Dalton, Georgia, which is an hour and a half away, but he was also getting his executive MBA at the same time with a newborn and a 2-year-old. So those were some challenging times, but at some point, and then he moved into, he's going to move into consulting. So at some point there was, I was hired by a wonderful athletic director. Her name is Cheryl Levick. At the time, she was one of only like 5 female FBS athletic directors in the country. So really learned a lot from her for management and preparation. So at some point there was a change in athletic directors, and that's always just change in athletic directors is just, it's tough. It's tough, and it was a new person, Charlie Kopp, who is actually, he and I are great colleagues and get along and everything. But it's still different. So around that same time, I saw that there was a position at Grand Canyon University open, and I asked some questions about it, and ended up with the search firm who was hiring for the job. And anyways, that's how we got connected. So long story short, a lot of interview things happened, and I did end up at Grand Canyon University with the help of Bob Bodine, who is a good friend and an amazing person, and it's been a great fit. But again, I helped Georgia State transition from FCS to FBS. At the time, GC was transitioning from D2 to D1, and that really became my niche, is helping like transitioning schools and building. And so it was my hometown. I got a call about the job the same day that my husband got a call with an offer for a consulting job where he could fly out of Phoenix. I mean, literally the same day. And so it was definitely a God thing for us. So I ended up coming here as the deputy athletic director. And
2015, right? This is
2015. We were just in the second year of the transition. I worked closely with the chair of the transition committee.
Who was that? Yeah.
Our wonderful general counsel. And we worked really closely together, and it was an incredible experience. The culture there is so strong, here is so strong, and we were able to really seamlessly move the transition together. But back to your question. So, it really was not our plan whatsoever to come back here or anything. It just was an opportunity that was available that I just asked about, and it became a really good fit, and it was just the right thing. So
yeah. And when you hit the campus at Grand Canyon, you were an instant hit across campus. I tend to remember the first time we met, it was sort of like you grabbed me and said, "We're going to be friends," or something like that. It was like, I don't know, like you just had that kind of personality. So it was awesome. When you got there, I mean, you fit in seamlessly. You've had tremendous success at Grand Canyon University, and I mean, you are the best person for this job. But it was not, you know, it wasn't fully built out, I guess, at that time. Like you said, we were in the second year of transitioning to Division I, and still we had those steps to go through. And you're moving your family, and so that had to be, uh, a little bit of a stressful period, even though it was probably exciting at the same time.
It was very stressful having, again, two kids, having them adjust to, to school. They were just starting school. The jump from Division II to Division I is substantial. And it's not just a jump for the athletics department. When you transition like that, it's a membership transition for the entire university. So there's all these things around campus that have to happen for any transition. And it was stressful, but what was so great is that the people around campus, just because the culture at GCU is so collaborative, made it so seamless. So that took a lot of stress off of me. I was actually prepared for there to be fights, because that's kind of how college, honestly, higher ed is. It's a little bit siloed. Everyone's worried about money in their own area and budget and resources. And so there's constant, butting of heads. And I understand why it's stressful. You don't want to, people are overworked, and you don't want to, add more to their plate. But the first time I met with kind of two of the people that really needed to be involved in the transition, it was Sarah Boder, our executive VP for operations, and then Jennifer Leck, who currently are vice provost and over the academic area. When I told them what some of the requirements are, I had like my violation reports ready, because I was ready for them to fight and argue. And all they said was, okay, just let us know when this needs to be done. And so they made it so seamless. And as much as I appreciate you saying that, I was well liked, it really isn't me. It's the people around campus are amazing. I mean, how can you not like and get along the people around this campus? I mean, you were there. I mean, I'll say this, and I will not take a job if I don't like the legal counsel. Like, general counsel is one of the most important jobs for an athletic director. And you just made it so, you were so helpful, never a fight. It was always solution oriented. I think a lot, you understood sports. I think maybe because you played sports. But that position, just the support from the university is critical for the success of an athletics department. General counsel, any athletic director in the country will tell you that's either their best friend or their biggest adversary on the campus. And fortunately for us, you were a good friend to athletics.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it really is a team effort at Grand Canyon. And so I think maybe too, to just set the stage with Grand Canyon. So, obviously we know it very well, but for people that don't, do you want to give maybe just a high level overview of kind of Grand Canyon University?
Yeah, one of the most amazing universities, a great story. But 75, we're going to be approaching 75 years old, I think in the spring. And it was a Grand Canyon College at the time. And now there was a time, I think in the early 2000s, where the university was really struggling. The college was really struggling, went down to, I think, 900 in enrollment. And that's when President Mueller and his incredible and talented team came in. And in less than 10 years, the university went from 900 students to like 20,000 students. And I think this year we're getting up to 26,000 students. But the growth of a university at a time when enrollment is going the other way across the country was really impressive. So the university has invested $1 billion in campus and infrastructure, classrooms, labs, all the things that you need for a long-term sustainable university. And so really just a short period of time. In some ways, it's the same university. It's that warm, Christian, open Christian, welcoming feel, but at a larger scale and with great community. So we just started transitioning in 2013 from D2 to D1. The university has had some good success as a Division II, and even when they were NAIA, when we were NAIA, we've had good success with our athletic programs, and we have really done because we have so much support from where we are Division I program now. We're at 57 championships in the last 10 years or so, and only 5 of those of which we have been eligible for postseason. So really growing as a university, continuing to grow. The interest in this university continues to be really strong, and that's benefiting us as an athletics program.
Yeah, um and so the university overall, huge success story. Um, incredible programs, incredible students, and then the athletics program. So that is, I would say, very unique in higher ed from my perspective. Maybe you would disagree, but the integration of athletics into the student body, the importance of that to President Mueller. Explain kind of how you have remind me how many different sports at Grand Canyon University, and sort of how many people in your department, coaches, students, student athletes, how many people are kind of under your umbrella? This is a big operation. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, it's big. We have about 120 staff members in athletics. We have 21 sports. I think we have 16 head coaches. It is a big operation, and I get this question a lot. I do not take summers off. Summers are summers are actually one of our busiest times.
Yep.
It's literally a mini business, but we're in the student athlete business, so we don't look at bottom line. We look at our bottom line is student experience. So yes, but we are operating. It's a big operation. Our areas vary from academics to compliance to sports medicine, mental performance, to marketing, sports communications. It's just a big operation, and it really is like running a business. But where we're, I think, a lot different than other universities, to your point, is everything is really integrated. And a lot of our success is because of what we have outside of athletics. And I'll just give an example. We there's 4 hours a day max that you can spend with practice. That's just an NCAA rule. So there's 20 hours a day you're spending outside of athletics. Transfer portal has really changed the landscape pretty significantly in college athletics. And our student athletes, they want to be here. And it's the community. If you ask them, it's the community. It's just the beautiful campus. It's just it's the entire university, the classes, the professors, the new buildings, everything around here that makes them want to stay. And we've been able to really navigate through the transfer portal really well because of that. And that helps us win championships. So, there's so many things around here outside of athletics that allow us to be successful. And the habits, the support from the students, I mean, there's nothing like it. And so, and where we're different is we're a part of this community. We're not the stars of this community. We're a part of it. So it's a great balance. It's really unique. But it's all of that all the other things outside of athletics that have helped us really be successful as a Division I program.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads into sort of not just GCU, but, talking about the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. I think, two big things I think going on in college athletics, it seems, as someone on the outside, just a casual observer in athletics, is NIL and conference realignment. Those two things are big. And I'm not going to put you on the spot or ask like where Grand Canyon's sort of at in any of that stuff, to the extent, you want to talk about a GCU specific sort of approach to those things is fine. But I'm just curious, sort of at a high level, how have those two things, NIL and conference realignment, changed, the landscape, and kind of where are we headed from here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is where I was mentioning, I never thought that my legal background would be so critical, but NIL and transfer portal, they go hand in hand, and it really has been litigation driven. There's just a lot of lawsuits going on, and maybe we as a membership within the NCAA, the NCAA membership, which is all of us, we're not in front of it and not staying in front of technology, social media, and all those things that impact name, image, and likeness. And so that's why we are maybe where we're at today. And that's just the opinion of myself. And I don't, of course, don't speak for anyone else in the industry. But it has changed the landscape in that, there's more tampering. There's always been tampering. There's probably more. And, where NIL was meant to just give student athletes the opportunity to use their name, image, and likeness to earn money, just like any other student. If you're a band member and a guitar company wants to sponsor you, then you could you could do that. Whereas before you couldn't do that if you were in athletics, even if it had nothing to do with athletics. But that was the intention, but it has really become more of a recruiting inducement. I mean, just in the industry, that's how it's used. And student athletes, and prospects, they do expect, they want to know what's their NIL opportunity if they go to your university. And so that's changed it quite a bit. Here at GC, we try to do things the right way. We try to stay in front of the industry. At the same time, we're aware of what's happening in the industry. So it's changed quite a bit. And I don't think NIL, is being used the way it was intended. But I don't think there's a way of going back either. So for them,
you can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle, right? I mean, it's out there now.
Right.
There's no going back.
Yes. But there's positives to it too. There are many, and including our student athletes, many very legitimate NIL deals. There's kids that are getting, free gear, not free, it's paid because they're working for it, but they're getting gear from companies that just from their social media posts. And it's real NIL deals that any other student would have access to. And a lot of women's, some of the large kind of the big names in women's sports, your Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, they're getting legitimate NIL deals from companies. And that's what was meant to happen. And so I'm really happy for the student athletes that are really, and there are a lot of them. And that's the thing. I don't want to be negative about NIL, because there are legitimate deals that are going on that student athletes should have been able to get that they're getting.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it has changed the industry.
And then the other piece, conference realignment. Like if I look it up today, I mean, there's news every day, right? I mean, what's going to happen with the Pac? I won't put you on the spot, but the Pac-12, the Pac-2. I mean, where does this all lead? What's sort of the big picture? People that I, sort of have casual conversations wonder, what this means for student athletes in terms of flying across the country now, because there doesn't seem to be any sort of geographic sense to any of this. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so it seems like it's a new thing kind of coming out of nowhere, especially with what has happened to, a conference that I grew up loving and watching. But these conversations have been going on since I was a compliance coordinator at Duke. We've always heard about these seismic shifts that were going to happen when TV deals were up. So really what's happening is what we kind of predicted would happen. I didn't know who was going to go where. I don't think anyone has, but I didn't expect some of the, the very really across the country movements that we're seeing. I did think there would be a little bit more of a footprint, and it's TV driven, it's market driven, and it's probably predictable. I guess I wouldn't have predicted it would have been so far across the country, and that does impact student athletes. The sports that charter everywhere, yeah, they're fine, and here's the thing, it's football driven. It's 80% football driven, but how many college football games are played each week? One, right? It's different from soccer, where you're playing on a Thursday, Sunday, and you might have to travel across country. Baseball program. So, I understand that there's a business side to it. I do think most schools and most conferences are trying to make it as regional, even with the split footprints, are trying to make it as regional as possible. And I do think, as much as bad, I would say negative, I guess, PR that the NCAA as a whole, we as a membership are getting, we are all incredibly committed to student athlete experience. But we do also have to have revenue coming in so that we can support the student athlete experience. So I think, as much it does impact the student athlete experience, I think all of us are doing our best to make sure that there's as little impact as possible, that we can give our student athletes the best possible experience. We still have to make sure that it can get paid for. So, I have mixed feelings about it, but I do have faith in the institution of college athletics, because there's nothing like it in the world. There's nothing like it. And people want to call student athletes employees and things like that. But if someone performs not well, we're still going to be there for our student athletes. It's not a
Yeah.
job. If you don't perform well, you get fired, right?
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
how.
Well, and so, okay. And let me try to weave this together, because I don't want to get off the podcast here as we're kind of coming towards the end without saying a couple things. So, uh, I want to talk about Brian Mueller's leadership, and sort of what it's like working within something like that. And I want to point out something too, that you are, and this is from your bio. So this, I don't know if the numbers are still correct, but you're only one of 4 Asian American athletic directors out of 353 programs in the country. And also only 14% of athletic directors are female. So just talk about that a little bit in terms of the landscape of college athletics, and sort of the progressive, I guess, maybe that's a bad word, I don't know, but sort of the forward thinking approach that Grand Canyon has, and under Brian Mueller's leadership, and what that's like kind of working in that environment.
Well, President Mueller actually has, I think, 50% of his executives, his vice president level at GCU. I think almost half, or maybe more than half, are women.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell him that that's the secret to his success.
Yes.
Here's the thing that
Yes, it is.
I really appreciate about him. When he hired me for this job, he was very clear, and he made it publicly in the press conference, that he hired me based on my performance and performance only. And I really, really appreciate that. Growing up, I never thought of myself as, or even going through my career, I never thought of myself as the female administrator or the Asian administrator, or, any of that. And I think that helped me in my career, because there was never any negatives. It was just me trying to work as hard as I could to serve as many as I could and be as helpful as I could. But once I stepped into the chair, I did realize how important it is for others to see me in this position. I still get emails and just notes of, I tell my granddaughter about her at you. I show her your story. I tell her that women can do this. I just ran into a friend, actually an attorney friend from law school, who the other day, I hadn't seen him forever, and she said, "Hey, I tell my sons about you because I want them to know that women can work in sports." So, I never thought about it, but I understand how important the representation of me being one of the few females, me being one of very few Asians in this chair. I understand how important it is, really, to those who are aspiring, similar who are aspiring to be in this role. And, again, I really appreciate that, it has never been something that President Mueller has focused on. It has always been about, my ability and my results. And I say
100%.
it's a team. It's team results. It's not mine. But
yeah,
but
and 100%. It's there's no doubt. Like I say, you are the best person for this job. I mean, you are the perfect fit for Grand Canyon and for the leadership team there, and the way that GCU just approaches things, and everything you have achieved in your career is very well deserved. There's no doubt about it.
I appreciate that. A lot of support. A lot of support, a lot of good people. That's the thing, is GCU, the sport culture, we attract good people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to team. Mm-hmm.
And so one other person who you work closely with, I think he was on campus this week, but talk about the relationship with Jerry Colangelo and the university as well.
So Mr. Colangelo, I grew up admiring him. I just told him the other day that I remember walking by him when I was at the Suns game, like I was 9 years old, and walked right by him, and he said, "Did you say hi?" I'm like, "No, I did not," because you had a look of very serious focus while the Suns game was going on. But anyways, it's really been, sometimes I sit in my meetings. I have a lot of meetings with President Mueller and Mr. Colangelo. And sometimes I sit back and go, I cannot believe I have this opportunity. I'm this fortunate to sit with two of the most transformational minds in their industry, with President Mueller being transformational higher ed, and Mr. Colangelo with what he's done with not just the sports industry, but with Phoenix. And it's just listening to how he thinks, how he strategizes, how he deals with people and handles people, the relationships that he's built, and the loyalty that has been around him. I just learned so much from just being around him. But it's one of the reasons I am so thankful for GCU is I am never the smartest person in the room, and I love it. I'm never the smartest. I'm never the most creative. I'm never the biggest team player, never the most collaborative, never the most Christ-centered, because you are just surrounded by incredible people, and Mr. Colangelo being one of them. So
Yeah.
he's great. He has been so helpful to us in transitioning and giving us guidance on strategy and just involvement with our athletics program. So yeah, we've been really fortunate.
Yeah. You're downplaying yourself again. You're a huge part of the team. You're a huge part of the success. And so it's what you have done at Grand Canyon is really impressive. Something that I think we're all proud of. And you should be very proud of what you've accomplished there. I know that you are, but yeah, you keep downplaying your role in this, but you're a big part of the success. Okay, so I think we're kind of coming up on time. I'm going to leave with a couple of quick questions on what you think GCU is going to do for the rest of the season. We're in the middle, of some sports having their seasons right now, looking towards postseason. I think the ones, that everybody cares about is basketball. Men's and women's basketball are a big deal on GCU's campus. What do things look like for basketball at GCU for this upcoming season?
I think it's going to be an exciting year. For the first time, both our men's and women's basketball programs were picked preseason #1 in the coaches poll. I have mentioned before about the transfer portal. The transfer portal has been good to us. We have a lot of student athletes that have, heard of us or had been here or played here, and they know what we're about. And so our rosters look deep. They look very athletic. And I think the recognition from the coaches poll kind of tells you the respect that there is for our programs. Our schedules this year look really good. On the men's basketball side, it's our toughest schedule we've ever had from a RPI or net standpoint. We've got San Diego State coming in. They're a top 20 program, top 25 program. We've got, we're in a couple of MTEs where we'll have some really good competition, multi-team events that will have really good competition. And the WAC, the other thing is this, the WAC looks strong. We've been in that top 15 among conferences. So it's going to be a really fun season. I'm excited to see us play an actual game. Gosh, it's a week away.
I know. Sorry, it's up. Basketball. Here we go. I mean, the NBA season kicked off last night.
Yes. But I'm also really excited to see the Havocs. The community here is stronger than ever. The kids are more excited than ever, and there's just a lot of buzz and excitement around the campus. So it's going to be a great season. Women's basketball has Oregon coming in, some really good, I think one of their strongest schedules as well. But Molly and her Benergy and her defense, exciting defensive play. It's going to be good. We're all excited about basketball season, and then for spring season will be two of our really strong sports in softball and baseball, and they're excited for the rosters. So
so to point out too, so first of all, for basketball, I don't know how many games we have this year, maybe 35. Is that
27 in an MT, or is it 27 or 29? I get them confused. Maybe it's 29 in MTE. So
I predict we go 34-2. I think we end up in the Final Four in Phoenix.
Final Four in Phoenix.
It's October 26th. Play it now. In the Final Four, when GCU is in the Final Four in Phoenix, you can say that I called it.
And you'll have proof of it.
And I got proof of it. Now it's on record. Okay. And so, and then baseball, also big. Jacob Wilson was the 6th pick in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. Mm-hmm. Shortstop from Grand Canyon University. What's life look for baseball post the Jacob Wilson era?
We look good. Coach Wallace, he is a known recruiter. He did a good job recruiting. Obviously, Jacob is it's hard to replace a top 10 draft pick. But I think Emilio is going to be the starting shortstop. Don't quote me on that. But we've got some talent on this team. Yeah. It's also a deep team. We've got some big hitters on this team, and our kids that had a really, really strong showing in the Cape Cod. So I know Zach York incredible hitter. That man is a power hitter. So
Yep.
I expect to see some home runs from him, and he's a big time player, also a future draft pick. Our pitcher is Danny Avitia. He's also projected a future MLB draft pick as well. He continues to look really good, and we've got some two pitchers. I think that that are going to be one of them. Grant Richardson, he came out of the Cape and did really well in the Cape. And then we've got a new freshman that we'll see. I think he might be able to start. He might be a starter. So we've got some big arms, big bats.
And to point out too, with the Avidias, Daniel and David, both two amazing success stories. I mean, grew up in the shadows of Grand Canyon University on the west side of Phoenix, and two great kids, amazing stories.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Okay, here's my last question for you.
Okay.
And you'll have survived this whole little experiment. What do we do first? Is it what comes first? Is it the Final Four or Omaha?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. It could be either. But I'll throw another one in there. I'm throwing softball.
Yeah. What's that, Oklahoma City?
Yeah, well, I think it is in Oklahoma. I don't even remember.
I thought it was in the same spot every year, but maybe
every year. I don't know why. I watch it every year, but no, we beat UCLA last year, first team to win an NCAA tournament game. So
well, here's what I'll tell you. Here's the answer. It's going to be Final Four first, because the Final Four happens before Omaha.
Good call.
So we're going to be in the Final Four in Phoenix, and then we're going to be in Omaha in June. That's my 2024.
That was smart. Very smart. Good answer.
Thank you.
The Brian Robbins I miss. Smart answer.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I think we survived it without any major gaffes, hopefully. So, any parting comments you want to make?
No, I'm just honored to be your first podcast guest.
And thank you to our sponsor, Array, for making this possible. And please tune in for future episodes. Thank you all for listening.